I think we've got it all set up. Oops, and I left my drink up there. Good evening, folks, and welcome back to Good Natured World Headquarters. Thought I would try joining you from the deck or the porch out here, but I made a last minute decision to move down on the stairs because we've got such a pretty doorway. There's the woodwork in this building just can't be big. This building is, the house is well over 100 years old, and it has such details. It's also got this somewhat accessible area under the porch. Not that we were going to go under there, but we noticed this last week. I think some sort of nature crawled under there and didn't crawl back out. There's a bit of, I wish we could do like aroma vision for you this evening, because there's a lot of other sensory aspects besides the sights. And I don't know if you can hear the sounds too. One thing I was hoping that would pick up with this mic, but it cancels outside noise. So I don't know if you can get that or not, but the chimney swifts are circling overhead, and they'll be going to bed pretty soon, but they are up there foraging. And then there's also nighthawks. I'm hearing the mate, as they're flying around. They sound an awful lot like woodcocks, but woodcocks wouldn't be something we would expect to see here in downtown St. Charles, but with the lights and the bugs, and then the river bugs that are an ever-present part of our downtown scene in the summer, we've definitely got a lot of these insectivores, and nighthawks are among them. They're actually one of the first birds I learned about, outside of the robin, sparrow, blue jay, birds in the yard. But I remember seeing them swooping over my grade school. I grew up across the street from Longfellow School in Wheaton, and the nighthawks would be cruising over there just about every night in the summertime. And my dad helped me identify them. He knew about them. If you can catch a glimpse of them when it's not completely dark and you've got the right angle, you can see that they've got white bars on the underside of their wings. Of course, their erratic flight as they're chasing after insects, that identifies them too. You might wonder why I'm so high on nighthawks. Well, I love listening to them. I actually was told that they nest over here. Local folks, you might be familiar with the building called the Shelby School. It was a school called Shelby years ago, and now it houses, I think there's some offices in there. There may be some classes of some sort that meet there too. But Susie, I don't know if you're on tonight, but I have to thank you for this book. And everyone, if you're looking for a nice, relaxing read and something that gives you a glimpse into the life of a wildlife biologist, a newly minted, actually, wildlife biologist. This young woman, Gretchen Newberry, is the author. She did a bit of a career switch when she got bit by the nature bug. I haven't gotten too far into it yet, but I love her writing style, and I love the subject matter too. This is what a nighthawk looks like. They are part of a group. I can't remember if they themselves are part of the goatsucker group, but I love that name, goatsucker, too. They're just a very unusual looking bird. Look at those big eyes, which they use for sighting bugs at night. Super cool bird, super cool book. Susie, if you're on tonight, thank you very much. And if not, oh, thank her next time I see her. I've got one other thing I wanted to show you, and Diane, I think you're here tonight. I think you said you're teaching about insects this summer.
No, I did insects last summer. This summer I'm doing trees because
Trees.
remember I was asking you about sassafras.
Oh, that's right, the sassafras. And you know what? And if Miss Bonnie's on tonight, we can talk about sassafras.
Okay, perfect.
Well, you can't avoid insects.
Well, I'm actually going to include, there'll be one afternoon that we do trees and insects and, you know, together. So since there's always a lot of insects on trees.
Well, and this is a great book. You know, it's written for kids, but anybody who's interested in insects and the scientific method, you might want to check this out. And it's a good book from from cultural perspectives too. It's called Buzzing with Questions, and it's a story of an entomologist named Charles Henry Turner. But it talks about his life. Even as a little boy, he was very curious about insects and spiders, and he conducted all kinds of experiments with them, you know, learning about how ants follow scent trails. He would come up with, you know, he had all these questions, and then he would come up with experiments designed to answer them. So another really cool, engaging book. There's a whole section in here on spiders. And I laughed, Susie, you know, you said that this reminded you of when I had dining room spider. I actually built something like this. It was a big fail, by the way, but I built something like this. Instead of a canning jar, I used a deli cup, but it was the year I'd found a trash spider that was living on the she was on the window, the glass window panel right next to my front door. And I got so used to seeing her every day. I called her trash spider. Her full name would be trash line orb weaver, but they're tiny little spiders that make tiny little orbs, and then they line up right through the center of the web. All their trash. So the exoskeletons of the insects that they've eaten, their own sheds as they molt and grow. It's a very distinctive looking web. And over time, because I think I first noticed her maybe end of June, so July, August. This was in September. It was around Labor Day, I believe. I noticed you know, the center line of trash was getting really unwieldy. And so I was kind of curious to see how much longer it was going to last. But we had a really windy day, and that trash, it broke the strands of silk, and poor trash spider is hanging on, you know, rocking back and forth. And I wasn't even sure if she was still connected to the trash. What they do is they camouflage themselves in that center line. So a lot of predators, all they see is the trash, the exoskeletons and everything. So I wasn't sure if she was in there still, but I went and I scooped up as much silk as I could, and I put it in that deli cup, and then I made a little structure just like Charles Henry Turner. And it was all very interesting, not to just me, but to my cat too, Jimmy. Jimmy knocked the whole thing over, and the experiment was a fail. Anyway, cool book. Check it out, or if you'd like to borrow it, let me know. I've got a nice new copy right here. From there, let's go ahead and take a look at oh, you know what? Let me see if I can find it here. I'm going to do a screen share of the video I tried to show you last week. Last week, we talked a little bit about pseudoscorpions. And I showed you a still picture, but the way these things move around is so cool. I had to, something is gone wonky with my laptop. I think I told you guys about this a couple months ago. Something, I can't just download a video and play it anymore. I have to run it through this VLC converter program. But I did that with the scorpion video. So let me see if I can get that to play here. So I'm gonna share the screen. I'm not gonna use, I'm gonna use this one. Okay. So I'm screen sharing here. All right. All right. So here it is. It's cleaning off its little pinchers, or maybe it's cleaning off its mouth. And then there it goes. It starts exploring. So it's at the bottom of a plastic cup. And the turn ratio on these things, I mean, like I think I said last week, it's like a 0 turn mower. Because working in a park district, we talk a lot about things like that. But this thing was tiny, tiny, tiny. If there was a toothpick in here, it would look like an enormous log. There it goes. Super cool. It was in the fabric softener dispenser in the laundry wash machine. This is a critter. They are an arachnid. See all those legs they have, and they're helpful to have around because they eat tiny little pests that might otherwise cause us a problem. There's also called the librarian's friend because they eat book lice. Now they do like it damp, hence the reason they were in the laundry room. It's the first live one I found in the 30 years I've lived in the house. I found 2 dead ones over that period of time. But anyway, finally got the video to work, and I wanted to share that with you too. So with that done, now let's go ahead and look at some other nature happenings, things that have been going on this past week. Let's just go with the screen, and here's our slides for today. Let's start. What am I going on here? Get out of the way, move this down. All right. Oh, not editing the album anymore. There we go. So, I had a fun little visitor the other day. This is a photo from the good-natured world tour van. I drive that around when I do the outreach programs that are a big part of my job. And I was driving actually up to the northern part of the county. We do a program for a facility up in Huntley. So I was driving. I was maybe 2 miles into the trip, and I realized I had a passenger, and it was this little guy here. I got immediately concerned, actually little gal, I believe. I got kind of concerned because it's a bee, and I wasn't concerned about being stung. It's a solitary bee. I wasn't sure at the time what it was, but I could tell it was a solitary bee. I just couldn't tell what species it was. So at a stoplight, it was sitting right on the driver's side window. So we had a good view of it. And when I got to a stoplight, I took my empty drink bottle and slid the insect in there. And then when I got to Huntley Springs, I brought the bee in with me because it was going to get too warm in the car. So we actually, the bee got to meet everybody. That's one of the larger groups we visit. There was probably 25 people or so in the room. So it became a show and tell item. And I put that napkin in there when I was at the end of that program, because I realized there was just a little bit of juice still in the bottom, and the bee was getting a little wet. So this way it got to dry off, maybe got a little bit of sugar too, and then had a ride home with me. I wanted to make sure, and maybe this is just me being goofy, but I wanted to make sure that it got back to a familiar territory again. I thought if I just opened the door when I got to Huntley, it would have to start all over again. If it could even find, you know, suitable soil for digging and you know, a mate, and I mean, it would have to start all over again. So anyway, I feel a little bit better now. When I got it home, it was kind of interesting. When I got back to where I park the van, the bee had gone inside the coils of that napkin. And I thought that was really interesting too, because this is a bee that's adapted to going down into tunnels. And so it had found, even though it was made out of paper and it was, you know, smelled like ginger lemonade, it was the closest it could find to, you know, home sweet home. So I might write a column about it. I did ask our local bee expert, a gentleman named Terry Measley. He can look at any bee and at least get it to family or genus, and sometimes a lot of times he gets it right down to species. But anyway, he thought that this was an andrenid bee, and I love the name. He said he's not exactly sure because there's two species that are very similar, but he's pretty sure that it is a bee whose common name is the friendly mining bee, the friendly miner. So I really felt like I had a friend there in the van with me, the friendly mining bee, who was probably the most well-traveled friendly mining bee around. I went all the way up to Huntley and back last week. Anyway, moving right along. So we go from, you know, happy little road trip with a friendly little bee to a not so good thing. These next few pictures, I probably should have put the warning, you know, for sensitive viewers, graphic content slide up. But this is something that was reported to us by a gentleman who's in our current KCCN, our current King County Certified Naturalist class. He had taken his grandkids over to Delnor Woods Park, and they noticed dead turtles. And that's not a good thing. And there wasn't just one, there was actually 4 dead turtles. Now what we're looking at here, this is duckweed that has started to come out and bloom. It's sort of pushed over to one side of this pond. Local folks, you might remember when the Delnor Woods Pond, this is the pond that's off of Route 25. You might remember when it was coated in duckweed. But a few years ago, we even had an interpretive sign to explain how duckweed is our smallest flowering plant, and it's, you know, not a sign of it doesn't occur. It doesn't always occur because of over nutrification. That's something, when you got a lot of nutrients in the water, sometimes it's an overgrowth of algae. Duckweed is a different plant entirely. But anyway, there was a decision made somewhere along the decision-making chain that duckweed was not desirable anymore. So let me just forward here. This giant aerator was put in. I'm going to zoom in here. This thing, it bubbles and sprays it. I suppose in a different setting, if it was like in a, you know, a man-made, you know, in a fountain, because that's what it is. I suppose, you know, it would be just fine. But here it is really changed the ecology of this pond. The duckweed is now all pushed over into this one corner. Now, if we go back a slide here, the good thing is that tadpoles are thriving. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of little toad tadpoles in the water. And they are feeding on the algae and the willow leaves. So that's good. My first thought with dead turtles was that there was an issue with the water quality, but if amphibians can survive in the water, then there's probably something else going on. These 4 turtles were all adults, and I'm pretty sure they were all painted turtles. It was hard to tell. None of them were close into the shoreline. If we zoom in here, we might be able to see some of the lumps. They just look like bumps in the duckweed. Yeah, trying to remember where there's you can't really see them. There's one over here. There's one back here. Here's one. So yeah, they were. It was hard to see any detail. But what I did notice was that if we go back here, what I did notice was that the shell growth looked normal. They didn't have any weird bumps or pyramids or curls, things that you would expect from poor husbandry practices. And that's a nicely shaped shell. Sometimes this does happen more often than we'd like it to in the parks. People have an animal they don't want to keep anymore. Maybe they haven't taken good care of it, so they dump it. In this instance, I was talking with Ryan, our lead ecologist, about this, and we thought, well, maybe maybe it was former pets, but I don't think they were. If they were former pets, they did have access to a good diet and good lighting, because these are nicely shaped shells. Each turtle, I would say, was about they had a shell length of maybe 8 inches or so. So again, good sized turtles, just unfortunately very dead. So anyway, getting back to this aerator, I don't know, that's my project for this week or maybe this weekend, is to try and figure out if there's any connection between all this disruption and these dead turtles. It's only 4 turtles. I know we have a lot more than 4 turtles that live at Delnor Woods, but I don't know if the way this thing is anchored in the pond, if maybe they had somehow gotten trapped there. Turtles, go down to the bottom of the pond to spend the winter. And I'm kind of wondering if they went down into the bottom of the pond around that aerator and somehow got trapped in whatever mechanisms are underneath the water. And then when the pond was, when the fountain was turned back on, maybe that just released their now dead bodies. That's just a theory, and something that bears some more investigation, but it is something that I want to learn more about. I was reminded of it. So this was I believe this was last Thursday. I was at Delnor Woods. Well, last Friday, I went with a group of local nature nerds, and again, Susie, thanks to you we were able to have a wonderful behind the scenes tour of Lincoln Park Zoo. Well, we also we visited one of the pond areas that they have, and look how this, I would imagine this sort of a look would be something our decision makers would approve of. There's actually an aerator in this pond. It's here. See those bubbles? Now I don't know. And again, that's a very different look than the Niagara Falls roaring fountain-like aerator that's at Delnor Woods Pond. But I'd like to learn a little bit more about it. I did not see any dead turtles at the pond at Lincoln Park Zoo. So if anything more develops on that, folks, I will let you know. But just be aware, if you're at Delnor Woods in the next few days. There might be a bit of a funk, just like there's a funk here on the front steps at Good Natured World headquarters. Yeah, it is a lovely time though to walk through the woods. The Mayaples are blooming very shortly. Once this flower is pollinated, you can see this is a Mayapple that has put up 2 leaves. You can see behind it, there's a Mayapple that only has 1 leaf. In order to be able to form a fruit, the plant has to be at least 5 years old. So this is a mature Mayapple here in the foreground. Once that flower is pollinated, then it does form what looks like a wee tiny little Granny Smith apple. That would, it doesn't happen in May. It will probably be later on in June that we'll see those. They're pretty hot commodity with the local wildlife. So if you want to see them, be prepared to look quick, take some pictures if you're lucky enough to notice them. The foliage then will wither and these plants will disappear. Wild geraniums are blooming as well. This is a plant that some people know as crane's bill, because once these flowers are pollinated, they form a little seed packet that looks an awful lot like the bill of a crane. This is one of a few wildflowers that we have in this area that doesn't necessarily need an intermediary agent to spread its seeds around. That crane's bill will pop open and fling the seeds. So when you see one wild geranium plant, you're apt to see several more, because those seeds, the plant is able to disperse its own seed by shooting them a few feet away, which is pretty cool. Now, this picture shows our native phlox, or woodland phlox, and this picture shows a little bit closer up view. Count with me, if you will. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Our native phlox have 5 petals. That contrasts with this character. This is, some people will call this phlox, and it is, I've seen it sold at, like, you know, when people are having a plant sale on their driveway. This has a few different names: Hesperus, Dame's Rocket. It looks a lot, and some people call it phlox. But if we count on this plant, if we look at these flowers, 1, 2, 3, 4, aha, not our native phlox. This is a member of the mustard family, and you're probably familiar with another member of the mustard family, garlic mustard. Dame's Rocket and garlic mustard both seed prolifically. All these blooms form just tons and tons of seeds. I don't know if this has the same vigor as garlic mustard. A square meter of garlic mustard plants can produce 100,000 seeds. I'm not sure if Dame's Rocket is quite that productive. It almost seems like it would be, because there's an awful lot of flowers just on these few plants. By the way, I am holding these. I picked them and they're drying in the back of the Good Natured van. So did a little bit of restoration work while I was there. I actually got chased by this thing. This is an oak apple gall, and it fell out of an oak tree and started rolling down the path. I heard just a little thunk, and I didn't think anything of it. And then I was standing, I think I was looking at the Mayaples. Out of the corner of my eye, I see this little green thing go rolling by. There was an incline or a decline on the part of the paved trail that I was on, and it went tumbling by. I made a video of it too, but with my video problems, I wasn't able to get that to play in our practice round. So maybe we'll see the great oak apple gall chase next week. But inside here, so you'll see these year round. What happens is a gall, I believe it's a gall wasp, an oak apple gall wasp, will lay an egg on an oak leaf, and it forms this hollow. Well, it's not completely hollow. It actually has got a lot of little yellow strands inside. That's where the larvae grows, feeds, matures, and then exits. So in the fall, when we see these, they're not green anymore, they're brown. And a lot of times you can find the tiny little perfectly round exit hole from where the little baby gall wasp left. So that was a cool find. And then another great middle spring joy. It's time for spittle bugs. So these are insects that they're an instant hit with kids because it looks like a big loogie that somebody spit out on a plant, but it's actually the home of these growing leafhopper nymphs. Leafhopper, froghopper, forgetting now which one it is, but they these are little insects that feed on plant juices. The nymphs, as they're growing, they insert. So these are bugs that have what we call a piercing, sucking mouth part. So they latch on to the stem of the plant, and they start to feed. And because they're feeding on juices from the plant, what they're excreting from their bodies is also very liquidy. Well, to give themselves the cover that they need, and this isn't just protection from predators, this also provides the moist environment that they need. So they suck the juice in, and then they, with their legs, I always picture like an egg beater, or a whisk, as you're, maybe you're making a meringue, and you go from a foam to a soft peaks to stiff peaks. Well, these guys, they beat that juice with their legs as it's coming out of their bodies, and it creates this froth or this foam that then they hang out in. What I didn't realize, I always thought, wow, that is a lot of excretions for one little bug. What I didn't realize is that these larger clumps like this are actually kind of like little spittle condos. Look at all those bubbles. Isn't that amazing? I did feel a little bit, and I tried to reconstruct the spittle nest once I was done investigating here, but there's more than one bug in these piles. Here we've got, let's zoom in here. There's the soft bodied nymph, two very prominent eyes, but then look up here. Here's another one. There were a couple others on here too that maybe in this particular photo they weren't captured, but I would say there was maybe 4 or 5 spittle bugs in that one foamy cloud-like little nest. I would say I did wasn't thinking at the time, I didn't get my lip balm out, but I would say that it is about the size of maybe my pinky finger, covering the stem of that plant. So last night, this is not a clear picture, but it also looks a lot brighter than it was. I took this picture, it was close to 9 o'clock last night. I had met a friend in Geneva, and we'd visited a couple of establishments there. And I was walking home and I heard woo, 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 woo. And I thought, wow, that owl sounds like it's right above my head. And it was. This is the school building that is just north of downtown. They now call it I think it's like the Hole Trap Administrative Building, something like that. But it was a nice addition to the sounds of the nighthawks that I was listening to there as I was walking home. So we're at the point in the great horned owl's annual life cycle where the parents are most of the young in this area have now fledged, and so now they're into the next stage, and the young are capable of flight, but not much else. So they're still pretty reliant on mom and dad for food. I just noticed the past couple of days the abundance of small rabbits that are around too. So I kind of think that's a neat little timing trick of Mother Nature, that as the demand for food is increasing on the parts of our birds of prey, the food itself is increasing. So yeah, this was a neat little background accompaniment to my walk home last night. Now, I'm gonna stick with birds here for the next few slides, and I would really appreciate your input on this. This comes courtesy of Jill, another one of our restoration ecologists. And these were not at Jill's house, but her friend Dave. Some of you might know Ponytail Dave. Well, so this is actually a house out in Caneville. What we see here is a cardinal on a nest, right? We all agree on that. But look really closely at the nest. It's secured to that post. Let's see if we can see it here. If I can zoom in any further. There's mud holding this nest together. Cardinals don't build their nests with mud, but robins do. So there's something going on here with a robin, a pair of robins and a pair of cardinals and a single nest. Dave's been watching it for a while, and Jill has too. This is clearly a robin feeding some offspring, but what did we see earlier? We saw the mama cardinal sitting on the nest. Here's the robin down here, and here's the cardinal up here. So one more. Oops, no, close your eyes. We haven't gotten there yet. Jill had texted me her thoughts on this. She's thinking that there's some co-parenting going on. She says, my theory is that the cardinal lost her brood and is hoping to adopt mama robins. There's actually, I did a little bit of searching online, because whenever there's an anomaly, there's a good chance that it's not the only time that it's happened. Jeepers. This is a publication called, yeah, no, we don't have to do that right now. This is an account that was published in, I think this was 2009, the Wilson Journal of Ornithology. And of course, they use the scientific terms and call it mixed clutch nest sharing. Was observed between an American robin and a northern cardinal in Saylor Township in Iowa. The nest contained 3 American robin eggs and 2 northern cardinal eggs, but only American robin young were fledged successfully. This was not a case of brood parasitism, as both females were observed alternating incubation of the nest. Competition for desirable nest sites might be a possible cause for this type of interspecific behavior. So that's going to be my question for Dave and Jill is there a competition for suitable nest sites? This structure looks like it would be very desirable, but I think there's probably lots of other suitable locations. I was just talking to someone the other day, though, about how, well, actually, we talked about this too. Remember, this was a week or two ago. There was the woman who had the local woman who had the robin attempt to nest on her porch, the woman's porch right above her mailbox. And so she had to do a little exclusion. And she said, well, can I just put the nest over in the tree? And yes, there are still robins that nest in trees, but there's an awful lot of robins who really show a strong preference for nesting on human-made structures. They're they're pretty durable. This thing isn't going to be swaying in a storm the way a branch might. There's, I don't know if this is like a part of a grape arbor or some other kind of structure. I don't know if a predator could scale this or not, but I know the robins that nest on porches and under decks and things like that are generally eliminating huge classes of predators because their nest just isn't accessible to them. So anyway, neither Jill nor Dave has been able to have a look inside of this nest to see if it's harboring robin eggs or cardinal eggs or a little bit of both, but I thought it was really cool and I wanted to put it out to you to see if any of you have ever experienced this sort of co-parenting. Now, if these are pawpaws, because yes, it is time for pawpaw season, there's all kinds of great things happening with our trees. I have a reminder on my calendar to look for roadkill to help attract pollinators that a pawpaw needs. You can tell by these maroon blossoms, we're not looking at the usual class of pollinators. This is a flower that has a sort of an unusual aroma, probably not unlike what I'm experiencing here on the steps with the dead thing underneath them. But this is instead of butterflies and bees, this is one of those plants that likes flies and beetles to come and visit it. So pawpaws are blooming. A few more months we'll have pawpaw fruit to enjoy. As I was walking down here this evening to sit here on the sort of noisy porch, I don't know if you guys are hearing all this noise or not, but there's between the vehicles and whatever event is breaking up here at the Baker building next door, it's really noisy. Anyway, I saw this the first one and I thought, wow, that looks like a pistachio shell. But as I looked closer at it, it was like 2 or 3 times as big as a pistachio, and I thought that's really, pistachios just don't grow that big. So I looked up and I saw that the tulip trees are blooming, gorgeous trees. Some people call this a tulip poplar, and it's not a poplar. It's actually in the magnolia family, but it's named for the tulip-like flowers that it gets. But I always think that the leaves themselves look like tulips too, kind of like stylized tulips like we used to draw in elementary school in art class. But really neat tree. It's an Illinois native. I don't believe it's native to Kane County, but I know it's widely planted. I know some of you have tulip trees in your yards. There's one that I walked beneath. It was a city tree, a parkway tree over on, I believe it's 8th Street, south of Prairie. This one is on 7th Street, but it's on the other side of the sidewalk, so it's not a public tree, it's private tree. It belongs to the homeowner. But I was absolutely amazed at the number of pollinators that are attracted to this plant. Let me see if I can pull that up for you again real quick. The website Illinois Wildflowers, it's illinoiswildflowers.info. They list the tulip tree as being native to the southern 2/3 of the state. And one of the many great things about that website is that it lists what they call the faunal association. So, you know, what animals interact with this plant. And it says, for tulip tree, it says the nectar and pollen of the flowers attract miscellaneous flies, beetles, honeybees, bumblebees, and other long-tongued bees. The ruby-throated hummingbird also visits the flowers for nectar. Some insects feed on the foliage, sap, or wood of the tulip tree. And then it lists tulip tree scale, tulip tree aphid, yellow poplar weevil, the root collar borer moth, the tulip tree moth, the tulip tree beauty, which is another moth, and tiger swallowtails. It also says that some vertebrate animals use this tree as a source of food. The seeds are eaten by such birds as the cardinal, the goldfinch, Carolina chickadee, purple finch. Mammals include the fox squirrel, gray squirrel, red squirrel, white-footed mouse, and the woodland deer mouse. They feed on the seeds as well. White-tailed deer browse on the twigs and foliage, as do horses, cattle, and other kinds of livestock. Yellow-bellied sapsucker often drills holes through the bark of this tree to obtain the sap. The ruby-throated hummingbird sometimes obtains sap from these holes as well. These birds also consume the insects that become trapped in the sap, and the pileated woodpecker sometimes uses this tree, this tall tree, as a nest site. Yeah, that was something else that was emphasized in this write-up. It grows to a magnificent size. They say at maturity, this tree can be as tall as 120 feet. So that's something over 10 stories, which is really amazing. So anyway, the tulip tree is in bloom, and that is very exciting. Now, something I was a little less excited to see was a couple blocks away from the tree. It's this tree, and it's gorgeous and it smells really good, but it's a tree that our natural areas crew, our restoration team, spends hours and hours and days, weeks and months trying to stamp out, control, get rid of. This is a black locust tree. It was brought to this area. My understanding is it was kind of the same reasons as the Osage orange. It was a tree that is strong. It's rot resistant. It has some really pesky thorns on it, so it can be used. It can be cut and cultivated and used as a hedgerow. It can keep cattle in. It can keep intruders out. As you can see by the number of blossoms on this plant, it will seed prolifically. Here's a closer look at these blooms. I thought I had included some of last year's seed pods. So this is the black locust. This is not the honey locust. The honey locust you probably are familiar with. It is native to this area. It's got the long bean-like pods. This has shorter, they look more like flat pea pods with lots of small seeds in them. So this tree is still pretty common in the area. Our restoration guys went after it. The last few winters, they've been cutting down and then cutting up the logs of this tree. If we go back here, let's take another look at the bark so you can learn to recognize it yourself. I always think of it as having a bark that looks ropey, like it's got almost like ropes or vines, but that's the character, that the texture of the bark itself. Well, it's blooming too. And this tree, I'm judging from its size and the location, it's there next to a very old home. I'm guessing this tree has been here for quite some time. Probably responsible for an awful lot of little black locusts around town. Anyway, with that ends our slides for tonight. It looks like we got a few chats to get to, so I'm gonna stop this share and we'll see what we've got going on here. We've got Susie, oh, Sarah, Nighthawks were the first bird. Do you ever us Wheaton kids, you went over to Washington school. Well, yeah, I remember we had the rule of you have to be home when the street lights come on. But I remember my dad then, I would come home and then we'd go back out so that we could watch the Nighthawks. Yeah, I'll just close my eyes to that. So was there a pair of robins? I think so, Diane. I want to say that I think it might be both pairs of birds, the male and the female cardinal and the male and the female robin. And yeah, I've seen the robins around here are pretty fierce defenders. They don't let cardinals or any other birds get close to their nests. So it's definitely a unique situation that's going on there. And if I can find out more, there was just that one article from the Wilson Journal that I was able to find. But Dave's pretty observant, Jill's pretty observant. So if they're able to figure out more, I'm sure they'll let us know. So that black locust tree, Kay, that is at the corner of 4th and Prairie. It's in St. Charles. It's on the southeast corner of that intersection. It's actually kitty corner. Remember my rant this winter about the city cutting down the bald-faced hornet's nest. It's kitty corner across the street from that tree. So I guess I spent a lot of time complaining about that one particular part of my walk to the office. But yeah, it's right in town. So I'm gonna pay closer attention because there's in that neighborhood there's a lot of mulched hedges between the houses, and I want to see if I can see any little black locust seedlings that are popping up from last year, and then I'll look again later this year. But yeah, it's a pretty tree, and I could smell it too. It has a very pleasant smell, unlike the smell that's surrounding me here. I keep looking. It's mostly just caddisflies that are buzzing around, but I would imagine that we might even have some cool carrion beetle action and stuff going on underneath the porch here. Anyway, with that, folks, it's just about 9 o'clock. I brought a light out here, but all the rest of the light is faded. I can see hundreds and hundreds of caddisflies around the streetlights here. I'm not hearing the nighthawks though. They must have moved over. Maybe they're over the river right now. Anyway, maybe I'll go check that out on my ride home. thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in this evening. Appreciate your time. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and see you again next week.
Thank you.
Speaking of,
Thank you, Pam.
we'll be loading.
Pam.
We need to talk to marketing so we can get our next dates loaded in. So we continuing on into June. I'll see you soon. Have a great
Okay.
Memorial Day, everybody.
Thanks, Pam. Good night.
Thanks again.